to be or not to be, or in our case, believe or not to believe, in Texas, that is. Take a look at the odds from Caesars Sportsbook, the odds-on favorites to win a national title this year, and something stands out. And I believe we would agree, it's Texas. The Longhorns are tied for the 7th shortest odds to win the title, but they're not even ranked in this year's preseason AP Top 25. The odds makers aren't the only ones, though, high on Texas. ESPN's College Football Power Index also ranks them 7th in the FBS entering this season. Sam Acho, I feel like it's wrong to start with you, but I know you can be take that hat off and be unbiased. How do you feel about Texas this season? Because I got to tell you, we've got a spectrum here of how people feel about this Longhorn squad.
Well, there should be a spectrum, Wendy. Since 2010, Texas has lost 7 games 5 times, right? They've been 5-7 3 times, 6-7 once. They have not been good. Last year alone, they lost 6 straight games. But there is a reason to believe. And that reason, it starts in the backfield of Texas. Bijan Robinson and either Quinn Ewers or Hudson Card will be coached by second-year head coach Steve Sarkisian. He has weapons all over the offense. He has weapons in Xavier Worthy, who as a true freshman had 12 touchdowns and had nearly 1,000 yards. He has a Heisman hopeful we mentioned in Bijan Robinson, a projected first-round pick. Now, the questions remain on the offensive line. There's going to be 3 new starters on the offensive line. The bigger questions also remain on the defense. Will Gary Patterson do enough to have that defense that was porous and atrocious last year be significantly better? If he can, and if Texas gets its quarterback situation figured out, then this team that went 5-7 last year could potentially go 9-3. Obviously, they have 3 teams that they play in the top 10, 4 in the top 12. Texas could turn it around.
Well, I'll tell you, I agree with you on the skill side of things offensively. I think they've got some skill guys that have a chance to be really special, even with some of the injuries that have occurred within the last 5 to 7 days. But the problem is all of their best players, Bijan Robinson, Jordan Whittington, all right, Xavier Worthy, none of them play in the offensive line, and none of them play quarterback. You talked about those 3 new starters in the offensive line. All right, some of those guys may be true freshmen. In fact, all 3 at one point could be true freshmen. How does that impact the overall offense? How does that impact the run game? And how does it impact the most important position on the field for Texas, and that is the quarterback position? I'm really interested to see just how far down the wire this thing goes between Hudson Card and Quinn Ewers. Obviously, the weight of the world on Quinn Ewers' shoulders so much of this season, and Steve Sarkisian's second-year hopes are going to be riding on the shoulders of how well the quarterback plays.
Well, that's huge. And specifically to the offensive line, Luke, you make a great point. Texas is going to the SEC in a few years. And what Steve Sarkisian has consistently said is, he said, I want to have large humans on our offensive line. So some of these freshmen you're talking about are 5-star recruits. They're these large humans that Sark saw when he was coaching with Alabama. And so I think that will or may be addressed. Now, the questions will really be answered, I think, on September 10th when Alabama comes to Texas, the #1 ranked team in the AP poll. That will be very revealing. But obviously, there's more games on the docket. There's Baylor at the end of the season, but Oklahoma and Oklahoma State, which are other top-ranked teams. And so I believe in Texas. I believe in Steve Sarkisian, but there is obviously and definitely reason to doubt.
You know, I talked to somebody this week who said it would be the year of the offensive line at Texas. I thought, when is it not the year of the offensive line?
Wait,
I mean, other than the quarterback, what's more important? I mean, what's more important than protecting the quarterback? Right? I mean, well, therein lies the question. We're all about the philosophes this afternoon, Tom Luganbill. The question, of course, in addition to what we've talked about, is who the quarterback will be. And regardless, we know the weight of the world will be on his shoulders. Quinn Ewers and Hudson Card competing for the job. Steve Sarkisian, by the way, says he does have a timeline for a decision in mind, but has yet to disclose what it is, although we certainly know the clock is ticking. Card was a 4-star recruit in 2020, made 2 starts for the Longhorns as a redshirt freshman last season. As for Ewers, he was a 5-star recruit in 2021, looking to make an impact after transferring from Ohio State. This is an important decision, Sam. We know that. Certainly not one that is static. It can be fluid, but what are your expectations for Sark and the decision he ultimately makes?
If I can be honest, I still don't know. Initially, I would have said it would have been Quinn Ewers, who was the #1 recruit in the nation, actually twice because he reclassified. I would have said him, but everything we've seen, and we've seen Hudson Card continue to push Ewers in this competition. Hudson Card is no slouch. He was one of the top-ranked dual-threat quarterbacks in his recruiting class as well. And so I believe it's going to be Ewers, but I wouldn't count out Card, especially because last year he started week 1, Hudson Card did, and he helped the Longhorns win. And so if I knew, I would tell you, but I don't, so I can't.
I'll tell you, listen, with Quinn Ewers, you have a player that has not thrown a meaningful college pass in a game or high school pass since the completion of his junior year. All right, so he was at Ohio State. He transfers back. We've talked about the NIL. We've talked about all the things that come with being the Texas quarterback. So what does that tell me? That tells me that Hudson Card must be one hell of a competitor, because the moment Quinn Ewers transferred to Texas, right now in our climate, the majority of kids would have walked away and they would have gone somewhere else. And he didn't do that. And I think that speaks volumes about him. I bet you that's reflected in the locker room. I bet you reflected amongst team chemistry. And it's probably making the decision really, really difficult for Steve Sarkisian. But you know what? The elephant in the room is this. With Quinn Ewers and the hype and the NIL and all those sorts of things that go along with it, what is the pressure? What is the level of pressure that's on Steve Sarkisian to start Quinn Ewers, even if he has a gut feeling that I'm just not sure yet because of all of the external influences? Now, I hate that we're talking about this, but it's got to be part of the equation. I don't know how it can't be. Whatever they do, though, the quarterback cannot turn the ball over. When you looked at their open practice this last week, and I know it was just one day and a long few days and a couple of weeks of training camp, but quarterbacks have turned the ball over a lot, and that is something that's dangerous.
Thank you for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.